The salt air hit me like a slap, carrying the faint echo of his laugh from that July night on the pier. But when I turned, it was just shadows dancing under the boardwalk lights. Alexander's voice cracked through the phone line 3 weeks ago. "One last summer, Danny. That's all I'm asking." And now, with his empty side of the bed still indented like a fresh wound, I clutched the receiver until my knuckles bleached white, whispering into the dial tone that I'd trade every dawn for one more stolen glance. In the dim motel room off Highway 1, the Pacific roared outside like it was morning too, and I realized with a gut punch that promises like his weren't made to keep. They were forged to shatter. I first met Alexander on a sweltering June afternoon in San Francisco, the kind where the fog clings to your skin like a bad habit and the city's pulse throbs through the veins of Haight-Ashbury. I was 25, fresh out of a dead-end graphic design gig in Oakland, nursing a black coffee at a corner cafe that smelled of patchouli and overbrewed espresso. My laptop screen glowed with half-finished freelance mocks, logos for artisanal kombucha brands that nobody would ever taste, when he slid into the seat across from me uninvited, his grin sharp as a switchblade. "Mind if I crash your pity party? You look like you're plotting the overthrow of the sourdough empire." I glanced up, expecting some tech bro in a Patagonia vest. But there he was, Alexander Hale, all lean muscle and effortless chaos, with hazel eyes that caught the light like fractured glass and a mop of chestnut hair that fell just shy of his collar. He wore a faded Ramones tee tucked into ripped Levi's, scuffed Doc Martens propped on the table's edge like he owned the damn place. 28, he'd later tell me, a freelance photographer chasing the raw shit for indie mags and his own fever dream Instagram feed. I should have told him to fuck off. My life was a carousel of bad dates and worse decisions. Guys who ghosted after one too many IPAs, or the ex who'd left me for a yoga instructor in Sedona. But something in his voice, that easy California drawl laced with East Coast bite, hooked me. "Overthrow sounds fun," I muttered, shoving my laptop aside. "What's your weapon of choice?" "Polaroids," he laughed, low and genuine, the sound rumbling like thunder over the bay. "Nah, man. Moments. The ones that stick in your throat." He flagged the barista for 2 more coffees, black as sin, and just like that, we were talking. About everything and nothing. How he'd grown up in a sleepy suburb outside Philly, dodging his dad's expectations of law school for a Nikon and a Greyhound ticket west. How I'd bolted from a Bible-thumping family in rural Ohio after coming out at 17, landing in the Bay Area with a duffel bag and dreams of pixel-perfect rebellion. By dusk, we'd wandered the streets, his camera slung around his neck like a talisman. He snapped me against a mural of Jimi Hendrix, the flash popping like a heartbeat, and I felt seen, not the polished version I curated on Grindr, but the raw, frayed Daniel Reyes, with my ink-stained fingers and the scar on my jaw from a bar fight I didn't start. "You're photogenic as hell," he said, showing me the shot on his screen. My eyes looked haunted, alive. Like you've got stories clawing to get out. We ended up at a dive bar in the Mission. Shots of mezcal burning down our throats while mariachi covers wailed from the jukebox. His knee brushed mine under the table, deliberate, electric. When he leaned in, breath warm against my ear. "Want to get out of here?" I nodded, heart slamming like a bass drum. His apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up in the Castro. Walls plastered with prints of abandoned motels and sun-bleached dunes, the air thick with the scent of developing fluid and sandalwood incense. We didn't make it past the door. His hands were everywhere, tangling in my hair, tracing the dip of my spine, fierce and tender in equal measure. "God, Danny." He groaned as I nipped at his collarbone. tasting salt and summer. You feel like home. It was messy, urgent, the kind of sex that leaves bruises you wear like badges. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of him, he traced lazy circles on my chest. "Stay," he murmured. "Just for tonight." I stayed for the summer. Those first weeks blurred into a haze of golden light and stolen hours. Alexander's world was a whirlwind. Dawn shoots at the Golden Gate, where mist wove through the cables like ghosts. Lazy afternoons in Dolores Park, picnicking on tamales from the trucks. His head in my lap as he scrolled through playlists of the National and Bon Iver. He taught me to frame shots. Not the postcard bullshit, Danny. The ache in between, and I showed him sketches of album covers inspired by his photos, our talents bleeding into each other like watercolors. But beneath the romance, cracks spiderwebbed. He'd vanish for hours, phone on silent, emerging with that distant look, like he'd left part of himself in the darkroom. "Client stuff," he'd say, waving it off with a kiss. I let it slide, too drunk on the way he said my name, like it was a prayer. We were building something real, or so I thought. Late-night confessions over cheap wine, where he admitted his fear of settling, of becoming his father, a man who'd traded dreams for a mortgage and regrets. "I don't want to wake up at 40 wondering what if," he said one night, fingers laced with mine on the fire escape. "Promise me we'll chase it, Danny. No holding back." "I promise," I whispered, sealing it with a kiss that tasted like forever. July brought heat waves that turned the city into a pressure cooker, and we escaped south, renting a beat-up Mustang for a road trip down the coast. Big Sur was our Eden. Cliffs plunging into turquoise swells, redwoods whispering secrets overhead. We camped under stars that felt close enough to touch. His body curled against mine in a tent that smelled of pine and sweat. One evening, at Pfeiffer Beach, purple sand staining our feet, he dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a Polaroid of us from that first day, developed in his makeshift lab. "One last summer," he said, voice thick. "Before everything changes. Let's make it count." Changes. The word hung like smoke. He wouldn't elaborate, just pulled me into the waves, our laughter echoing as we tumbled in the surf. But in quiet moments, I catch him staring at the horizon, jaw tight, like he was memorizing the curve of the earth. I chalked it up to his artist soul, the restlessness that made him magnetic. We made love on the beach that night, sand gritty against our skin, his whispers fierce. "You're mine, Danny. Don't ever forget." Back in the city, the idol frayed. My freelance gigs dried up, bills stacking like Jenga blocks, but Alexander's checks from a mysterious gallery project kept us afloat. He grew evasive about it. "Big opportunity, man. Trust me." And our nights stretched longer, arguments sparking over nothing. Why he bailed on my sister's visit from Ohio, or the way he'd flinch when I mentioned the future. "Live in the now," he'd plead, pulling me close. That's the deal. One humid August evening, after a shoot that ran late, he came home reeking of bourbon and something sharper, cologne that wasn't his. I confronted him in the kitchen, heart hammering. "Who's she?" The words tasted like acid. His eyes widened, then softened with that disarming smile. "Danny, come on." "It's nothing," but his phone buzzed on the counter, screen lighting up with a text. "Missed you tonight. Same place tomorrow, Jay." The room tilted. "Jason? Your old college buddy? From the reunion last month." I'd met the guy once, tall, brooding, with a laugh like gravel. Alexander swore it was platonic, but the pieces clicked. The late nights, the distance. "It's not what you think," he started. But I was already grabbing my keys, storming into the fog-shrouded streets. He caught me on the corner, spinning me around, his grip bruising. "Listen to me. Jason's complicated. But you, God, Danny, you're everything." Rain started then, slicking his hair, tears mixing with the downpour. We fought under the street lamp, words like knives, my accusations of betrayal, his pleas laced with half-truths. "I love you," he choked out. "That's not a lie." We made up in the downpour, desperate and raw, bodies slamming against the brick wall of an alley. It was forgiveness forged in fury, his hands mapping every inch like atonement. But the seed of doubt had taken root, twisting through the fragile bloom of our summer. As Labor Day loomed, Alexander grew frantic, planning one final getaway, a cabin in the Sierras. To reset, I agreed, clinging to the mirage of us. Little did I know, it would be the unmaking. The drive to the cabin was a ribbon of asphalt unspooling through Yosemite's granite sentinels, Alexander's playlist heavy on Fleet Foxes and the hum of tires on blacktop. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other tracing idle patterns on my thigh, windows down to let the pine-scented wind whip through. "This is it, Danny," he said, eyes on the road but voice laced with urgency. "Our reset. No bullshit. Just us." I wanted to believe him. The Jason incident lingered like a bruise, tender when pressed, but his attentiveness since, flowers swiped from corner bodegas, surprise sketches of his face in my notebook, had softened the edges. We were young, flawed, American dreamers chasing the myth of perfect love in a country built on reinvention. San Francisco sprawled behind us now, a glittering memory, and ahead lay isolation, a weathered A-frame off Tioga Pass, rented for peanuts through some app, surrounded by aspens turning gold in the first teas of fall. We arrived at dusk, the cabin's porch light flickering like a hesitant beacon. Inside, it was all knotty pine and cast-iron skillet charm, cozy in that forced, Airbnb way. Alexander unpacked the cooler with theatrical flair. Craft beers, heirloom tomatoes from the ferry building, a block of aged cheddar that he declared orgasmic. We grilled steaks over a fire pit as stars pricked the velvet sky, the crackle of flames underscoring his stories of childhood summers in the Poconos, skinny dipping in creeks with his brother, before the divorce splintered everything. "You're quiet tonight," he noted later, as we swayed on the sagging porch swing, his arm heavy across my shoulders. The air was crisp, laced with wood smoke, and in the distance, a coyote's howl sliced the silence. Just soaking it in, I leaned into him, inhaling the familiar mix of his soap and the earth's damp breath. "This feels like permanence," he tensed, almost imperceptibly, then kissed my temple. "Yeah, permanence." That night, lovemaking came slow and deliberate, candlelight flickering over his skin like a Vermeer painting. He was reverent, mapping my body with lips and tongue, murmuring endearments in the hollow of my throat. "I don't deserve you," he whispered at the peak, voice breaking. I held him after, our breaths sinking in the dark, wondering at the sorrow threading his words. Morning brought hikes, mist trails cascading veils, vernal falls roar drowning our laughter as we slipped on slick granite. Alexander's camera clicked relentlessly, me mid-stride, water beating on my lashes. Him perched on a boulder, profile etched against the Sierra Nevada's jagged teeth. "You're my muse, Reyes," he teased, slinging the strap over his neck. "Don't let it go to your head." By afternoon, we picnicked at Tuolumne Meadows, wildflowers nodding in the breeze, the vastness humbling us into silence. That's when he broached it, casual as lobbing a frisbee. "What if we left here, ditched the city grind? Headed east, maybe. Start fresh." My sandwich paused halfway to my mouth. "East? Like Philly or New York? Galleries there eat up my kind of work. We could crash with my aunt in Brooklyn, hustle till we score a loft in Bushwick." His eyes sparkled, that reckless gleam I'd fallen for. "You, me, the skyline. No more scraping by." It sounded like escape, a rom-com montage waiting to happen. But the undercurrent nagged, the "one last summer" refrain, now retrofitted as a launchpad. And Jason, I couldn't help it. The name slipped out like venom. His face shuddered. "Ancient history. Swear on my Nikon." We let it drop, but the Meadows piece curdled. That evening, over whiskey by the hearth, he pulled out a manila envelope from his pack, photos, glossy 8x10s of urban decay, rusted fire escapes in the Bronx, graffiti-tagged alleys in Queens. "Got a lead," he explained. "Scout gig for a doc series on Forgotten America. Pays enough to float us for months." Pride swelled, mingled with unease. "That's huge, Alex. Why the secrecy?" He shrugged, flames dancing in his irises. "Didn't want to jinx it. But it's real. Starts next week. Next week. The summer's end, sharp as a guillotine. We celebrated with a bottle of Napa Cab, bodies entwining on the bearskin rug, the fire's glow gilding our sweat-slick skin. Yet as he slept, I lay awake, staring at the rafters, the envelope's edge peeking from his bag like a taunt. The next day cracked the facade. We'd planned a summit push, half-domes cables, that masochistic right for East Coast transplants proving their West Coast cred. The trail clawed upward, lungs burning in the thin air. Alexander ahead, his calls back laced with encouragement. "Come on, Danny, summit beer awaits." We crested at noon, the valley unfurling below like a green quilt stitched with rivers. Elation hit, fist pumps, a sloppy kiss with the wind whipping our clothes. But as we descended, his phone, tucked in a side pocket for signal, buzzed insistently. He checked it once, twice, face draining of color. "Everything okay?" panted, pausing on a switchback. "Yeah. Just work." He powered it off, but not before I glimpsed the sender, Jay. "Need to talk. Urgent." Rage simmered through the fatigue. By camp, it boiled over. "Show me," I demanded, blocking the tent flap. "Or we're done." He deflated, handing it over with trembling fingers. Text scrolled back weeks. "Miss our nights. When can I see you? Danny doesn't have to know. Please, Alex." The world narrowed to a pinprick. "You lied." My voice was steel, but inside, I was crumbling. "This whole reset. It's a goodbye tour." "No!" He lunged, grabbing my arms. "Jason's desperate, clinging to old shit. I ended it before us, Danny. I swear. Before us? Or during?" Evidence piled. The cologne, the vanishings. Betrayal bloomed, hot and humiliating. We screamed into the twilight, him protesting love, me hurling accusations of manipulation. You promised one last summer. Was it all a con? Pity fuck for the road. His slap came swift, palm cracking against my cheek. Shock more than pain. We froze, breaths ragged. Fuck you, he hissed, tears carving tracks down his face. You think this is easy? Leaving for the job. Yeah. But not you. Never you. Leaving. The word hung. Revelation dawning. The East Coast move it solo. Silence stretched. Damning. Then, broken. The gigs in Philly. My dad's sick. Cancer. Stage 4. He wants me there. End of life stuff. I couldn't say it. Didn't want pity. Empathy warred with fury. I shoved past. Hiking into the dusk alone. The forest closing like a judgmental jury. Hours later, I returned to find him packing by lantern light. Duffel half-zipped. I'm going, he said dully. Back to the city tonight. You stay. Or whatever. Alex. My voice cracked, the fight leaching out. He paused, eyes raw. I love you, Danny. That's the truth. But I can't drag you into this mess. Dawn broke gray as he drove off, taillights fading into mist. I stayed 2 days, hiking till my feet blistered, numb to the beauty. Then, hitchhiking back to San Francisco. The cabin's echo followed. Promises broken. Love's fragile architecture exposed. October stripped the city bare. Leaves skittering like confetti from a funeral. I crashed with a friend in No Valley, drowning freelance rejections in dive bar pictures. Alexander's texts came sporadic, landed safe. Dad's holding. Miss your laugh. I replied in monosyllables, pride a barbed shield. Betrayal festered, but so did longing, the curve of his smile, the way he'd hum off-key in the shower. Mid-month, a package arrived, his camera, wrapped in butcher paper, with a note. Keep shooting. For us. I sold it online, the cash buying a one-way ticket south. Big Sur called, that beach from July, waves indifferent to human wreckage. Big Sur in autumn was a different beast, wilder, stripped of summer's gloss, the Pacific churning gray under slate skies. I checked into the same motel from our road trip, room 7 with its creaky brass bed and ocean view window fogged by salt spray. The clerk, a leathery woman named Rita with a voice like smoked gravel, recognized me. Back for more heartache. Sugar, last time you two lit up the place like fireflies. I forced a smile, signing the register. Something like that. Nights blurred into rituals. Dawn walks on the headlands, where elephant seals bellowed their ancient symphonies. Afternoons sketching driftwood portraits in a notebook I'd bought on impulse. Faces emerging that looked suspiciously like his. Daniel Reyes, artist in exile, romantic, right? But solitude was a cruel mirror, reflecting the voids, the empty half of the motel coffee pot, the silence where his snores should rumble. Betrayal's sting dulled to an ache, philosophical in the fog. Hadn't America taught us reinvention? Manifest destiny for the soul. Shed the skin. Claim new ground. Yet Alexander haunted me. His hazel eyes fracturing in memory. The tentative I love you before the cabin door slammed. Was it cowardice or kindness? Sparing me his family's grief? The texts from Jason Nod. Proof of fractures predating us. But did that absolve the lies? One stormy afternoon, holed up with bad TV and room service chowder. My phone buzzed. Not him, my sister, Maria, from Ohio. Call me. Worried. Her voice, when I did, was a lifeline laced with judgment. Danny, you sound hollow. This guy's got you twisted. Come home for Thanksgiving. Ma's making tamales. Home. The word tasted foreign, laced with memories of Dad's Bible-thumping sermons. The night I packed a bag after he called me an abomination. Maybe I hedged. Need to sort shit out. Sort him out. You mean? Love's not a battlefield. Mijo. We hung up, her words burrowing like ticks. That evening, as rain lashed the windows, I drove to our beach, tires hydroplaning on the slick PCH. The purple sand was sodden, waves clawing at the shore like desperate hands. I screamed into the gale, curses at Alexander, at myself for falling so hard. A rogue wave soaked me to the bone, and I laughed, manic, collapsing onto the wet earth. Back at the motel, shivering in a threadbare towel, I scrolled his Instagram. Last post. A Philly skyline at dusk, caption chasing shadows. New chapter. Comments from strangers. One from Jay. Proud of you, man. Heart emoji. I hurled the phone across the room, screen cracking like my resolve. November crept in, holidays looming like indictments. Rita, sensing my spiral, dragged me to her bonfire circle, locals and stragglers swapping tall tales around driftwood flames. There was Hank, a retired surfer with a glass eye and stories of 60s acid trips. Lila, a poet nursing a divorce with haiku and hemp. They folded me in, passing a flask of mezcal, and for a night, I forgot, the fire's warmth thawing the ice in my chest. You're a writer. Ha! Hank grunted, eyeing my notebook. Spill. What's the poison? Lost love? I admitted, voice rough. Guy promised the world, delivered a ghost. Lila nodded, smoke curling from her lips. Ghosts are the best lovers. They don't leave crumbs. Their wisdom was folksy balm, humanistic in its grit, America's underbelly, where reinvention meant scars as souvenirs. I stayed through a week of temp work at a roadside gallery, framing tourist snapshots of lighthouses and kelp forests. The pay was shit, but the rhythm grounded me. Mornings misted with fog, afternoons haggling over seascapes. Then, the email. From Alexander. Subject, unsent letters. Danny, words fail, as they do when the heart's in arrears. Dad's gone. Quiet, in his sleep, like he planned it that way, efficient to the end. Funeral was yesterday. Rain on the gravesite, Mom clutching my sleeve like I'd vanished too. I keep seeing your face in the pews, imagining your hand in mine. Betrayal's a thief, but regrets the warden. Jason was a mistake, a crutch from before you lit me up. I cut him off, blocked everything. The job fell through. Turns out forgotten America didn't need my lens. So here I am, in this hollow Philly row house, sifting Dad's ashes and my own bullshit. One last summer. I meant it as a gift, not a guillotine. Come east, or let me come to you. No promises this time, just time. Yours, broken, Alex. I read it 10 times, pulse thundering. Forgiveness flickered, tentative as a match in wind. But trust, that was rubble. I replied before dawn, Big Sir. Room 7. If you're serious, prove it. The knock came 3 days later, a freak clear sky blessing the coast. I opened the door to him, thinner, shadows under his eyes, but that grin, hesitant, blooming like hope. Danny, we stood there, the threshold a chasm. Then I pulled him in, door slamming, mouths crashing in a kiss born of famine. It was messy, teeth and tears, his hands fisting my shirt like anchors. "I'm sorry," he gasped against my neck. "For all of it." Clothes shed in a frenzy. We tumbled to the bed, bodies rediscovering familiar terrain, his freckles across my collarbone, my fingers in his hair. It was reclamation, fierce and forgiving, the room echoing with our gasps. After, spent and tangled, he traced the scar on my jaw. "I thought I'd lost you. You almost did. Honesty now. No varnish." We talked till the sky bruised purple. His father's decline, the pressure of legacy, my fears of being the rebound, the disposable queer kid from nowhere. "I want the mess," he said, voice steady. "With you. East, west, doesn't matter." Relief flooded, warm as the post-storm sun. But life, that great American equalizer, had one more twist. December dawned crisp. Our decision crystallized over motel coffee. New York, compromise. Alexander's aunt in Brooklyn offered her spare room. A brownstone in Bed-Stuy, steps from the J train. We packed light, the Mustang groaning under boxes of books, cameras, half-finished canvases. The drive east was epic. Route 66 echoes through the Southwest's red rock cathedrals, snow-dusted Rockies testing the heater, Midwest plains stretching like blank pages. En route, in a Taos diner smelling of green chili and fry oil, he proposed not marriage, but partnership. "Let's ink it," he said, sliding a napkin across the formica. "Vows. DIY style." We scribbled. "I promise to photograph your storms, to sketch your silences, to love the broken parts. Silly, sacred." Sealed with diner pie and a kiss. New York swallowed us whole, neon pulse, subway symphonies, the Hudson's moody gleam. Aunt Clara, a silver-haired firebrand who'd marched in Stonewall reruns, welcomed us with brisket and brutal honesty. "Don't fuck it up, boys." Cities full of pretty distractions. We hustled. Me landing a junior art director spot at a queer mag in Chelsea. Logos for pride campaigns that felt like purpose. Him gigging for Vice. Street portraits of immigrants and activists. His work gaining traction in zine circles. Nights were ours, rooftop bars in Williamsburg. Hands linked under string lights. Lazy Sundays in Prospect Park. Debating Scorsese versus Spielberg till dusk. But shadows lingered. January's chill brought Alexander's cough. A dry hack at first, dismissed as city smog. By Valentine's, it worsened, blood-flecked tissues hidden in trash bins. "Just a bug," he insisted, but his eyes betrayed fear. Panic clawed. Tests at Mount Sinai confirmed. Pneumonia, opportunistic, courtesy of a positive HIV status he'd buried since college. "I got retested before us," he confessed in the sterile consult room, my hand crushed in his. "Negative then." But I slipped. Once, with Jason. Before I knew better. Betrayal revisited, but muted by terror. "Why didn't you tell me? Didn't want to lose you." Thought I could outrun it. The doctor droned. Antiretrovirals. Adherence. Undetectable equals untransmittable. Hope in statistics. But the diagnosis was a thief, stealing our naive forever. Spring erupted in Brooklyn like a fever dream. Cherry blossoms rioting along the promenade, the East River glittering under relentless sun. Alexander threw himself into treatment with his trademark intensity. Pill sorters lined like soldiers on the nightstand, Yoga classes in McCarran Park where he'd downward dog with a warrior's grace. This body's a temple, he'd quip, flexing for me in our shoebox kitchen. But the undercurrent was steel, fear masked as defiance. I adapted, the American way, researching forums till my eyes burned, advocating at appointments with a fierceness born of love. Our brownstone became a bunker of normalcy. Clara's famous kugel on Fridays, game nights with her book club lesbians, their body toasts to health and hot sex, Daniel and Alex, the golden couple weathering the storm. But privately, cracks widened. His energy flagged, shoots cancelled, my reassurances ringing hollow. Why me? He vented one April night, pacing our living room amid stacks of undeveloped film. Rain pattered the fire escape, a moody underscore. Out of everyone, why slap this on the guy who finally got it right? I pulled him down, arms a cage. Because life's a prick. But we're fighters. Remember Big Sir? We survived that shitshow. He laughed. Brittle. Yeah. And look where it got us, raw-dogging destiny. Intimacy shifted. Tender now. Exploratory. We mapped new territories. Slow dances in the dark to Nina Simone. His head on my chest listening to my heartbeat like a talisman. Sex was sacrament, gentle, affirming, his vulnerability a gift. You're my anchor, he'd murmur post-climax, fingers laced with mine. Don't let go. Work became ballast. My mag gig blossomed into a solo exhibit, digital collages blending his photos with my graphics. Fractured frames, queer Americanas, at a Soho co-op. Opening night, June heatwave sticky. He stood beside me in a thrift store blazer, schmoozing collectors with that charm dialed to 11. My partner's the visionary, he'd say, arms slung around my waist. I just point and shoot. Sales trickled. Enough for a weekend in the Hamptons, courtesy of a patron's Montauk cottage. There, on dunes fringed with sea oats, we recaptured echoes of California. Bonfires crackling, his Polaroids developing in the salt air. One last summer? He joked, but his eyes held galaxies. Gratitude, grief, unyielding love. Yet conflict brewed, insidious. July brought a relapse, fever spiking, yard dash in the witching hour. For drips and monitors beeped like accusations. Discharged. He withdrew, snapping at my hovering. I can wipe my own ass. Danny. Back off. It's love, not pity. I shot back, slamming cabinets in our kitchen skirmish. Love or control? His voice cracked, vulnerability lashing out. You signed up for the fairy tale, not the fallout. The fight escalated. Words weapons. My resentment at playing nurse, his guilt weaponized into isolation. Maybe you should have bailed at the cabin, he hurled. Saved us both the drama. I stormed out, wandering the throbbing veins of Manhattan, Times Square's chaos a balm to my rage. Hours later, at a Chelsea piano bar, nursing a Manhattan amid torch songs, clarity hit. This was the climax. Not betrayal's blade, but endurance's forge. Love wasn't absence of pain. It was choosing the ache daily. Reconciliation came at dawn, me slipping into bed beside his fever-damp form. I'm in, I whispered, kissing his brow. All the way. Mess and magic. He stirred, tears glistening. Me too. God, Danny, I'm scared. We cried then, raw and released, the city awakening indifferent outside. August steadied us, meds recalibrated, viral load plummeting. Alexander's work surged. A gallery show in the village. Echoes of absence. Portraits of queer elders who'd outlived plagues. Critics raved. Hale captures resilience's quiet roar. And suddenly, he was the it boy. Invites pouring like confetti. I swelled with pride. Our partnership symbiotic. His images fueling my designs. A feedback loop of creation. But fame's shadow loomed. At a MoMA after-party. Champagne flutes clinking amid air-kissed egos. Jason materialized, older, sharper suited. A producer now scouting talent. "Alex," he purred, hand lingering on his elbow. "Been too long." Alexander stiffened, but politeness held. I watched from across the room, gut twisting as they conversed. Low laughs. Old shorthand. Later, in the cab home, I confronted, "Friend or foe?" "Ghost," he sighed, head on my shoulder. I told him we're done. For good. Trust rebuilt. Brick by brick. Fall gilded Central Park. Leaves a fiery carpet underfoot. We adopted a rescue mutt. Luna, part terrier. All attitude, her romps a ritual of normalcy. Holidays healed. Thanksgiving at Clara's. Hanukkah lights flickering as we spun dreidel with queers from every borough. Toasting survival. Yet the humanistic core pulsed. We weren't heroes, just humans navigating the grind. Alexander's health stabilized, but checkups loomed eternal. Reminders of fragility. Undetectable, the doc affirmed, but we knew life's lottery spun on. Winter solstice, snow blanketing the bridge. He surprised me with a vow renewal rooftop. Just us and Luna, fairy lights strung like stars. "I promise the winters too," he said. Rings, simple silver bands engraved one last. Always. The hard parts. The beautiful mess. Kissing him. Snowflakes melting on lashes. I felt it. Not perfection, but profundity. Love as verb. Defiant against entropy. Spring 2026 bloomed anew. Our second anniversary marked by a road trip, echoing that first Mustang jaunt. But east to Cape Cod. Dunes whispering of fresh starts. There, on a Hyannis beach, he handed me an envelope. Test results. Negative for me. His load invisible. "We're bulletproof," he grinned. But his eyes held the weight, the luck, the labor. Back in Brooklyn, life layered on. Promotions. Podcast on queer art. Luna's puppy antics. Betrayal scar faded to silver. A testament. We clawed through the drama, emerging scarred but whole. One June evening, as fireflies danced in the yard, Alexander raised a glass. To us. The story that didn't end. Clinked. Heart full. To the chapters ahead. Summer 2026 arrived uninvited. A heat mirage shimmering over the asphalt, pulling us back to the coast. Not California's rugged cliffs, but the Jersey Shore's boardwalk carnival. A nostalgic detour en route to Philly for his mom's birthday. Alexander drove our upgraded Subaru, windows cranked, Bruce Springsteen blasting Thunder Road like a mission statement. Luna snoozed in the back, paws twitching dreams of squirrels, while we sang off-key, his hand on my knee a constant. "Remember our first summer?" I teased, wind tousling his now shoulder-length hair, sun-bleached from rooftop shoots. He smirked, eyes on the rear view. "How could I forget? You in those tragic cargo shorts, thinking you were incognito. Bastard." I swatted him, laughing. 2 years on. We were seasoned, 30s knocking, but the spark undimmed, tempered by trials into something unbreakable. The boardwalk was the assault. Funnel cakes greasing the air, arcade bells clanging, families in flip-flops dodging seagulls. We played skee-ball like kids, his competitive streak surfacing in mock trash talk. Prizes redeemed for a stuffed crab he dubbed Sir Pinch-a-Lot. Dusk fell, the sky bleeding orange into the Atlantic, and we walked the pier, cotton candy dissolving on tongues. Feels like full circle, he murmured, leaning on the rail, ocean's rhythm sinking our breaths. From San Francisco chaos to this us. Solid. I nodded, arm around his waist. Took work. But yeah, Philly welcomed us with open arms and cheesesteaks. His mom, Evelyn, a widow now with a laugh like wind chimes, enveloping us in hugs scented of lavender and loss. The row house, once hollow, brimmed, photo walls updated with our faces, Luna's toys scattered like confetti. Over dinner, pot roast yielding to her famous apple crisp, she raised a toast. To family, blood or chosen. You've given me joy again. Boys. Alexander's eyes misted. He squeezed my hand under the table. Later, in the guest room, he traced my tattoos new ink, a compass rose for direction amid storms. You're my north, he whispered, lovemaking soft, reverent, the house creaking approval. Back in Brooklyn, momentum built. His gallery show sold out, a TEDx invite on queer visibility pending. My designs graced billboards, a queer-owned brand collab in the works. We volunteered at the Ali Forney Center, mentoring street kids with stories echoing our youths, foster escapes, coming out wars. Humanistic threads wove tight. Love not just personal, but communal, a ripple against isolation. Yet drama's ghost stirred in September. A call from Jason, producer now with a Hulu doc pitch. Alex, hear me out. Your lens on the epidemic. Timely. Raw. Partner with me. Alexander hesitated, phone warm in his palm. Danny. We debated over takeout lo mein, chopsticks poised. It's your call, I said carefully. But ghosts. They haunt. He nodded, dialing back. Appreciate it, Jay. But my story's mine now. With my partner. Closure. Clean. Relief washed me. Trust. Once fractured. Now rebar strong. October's foliage tour, Hudson Valley BNB. Leaf peeping like Midwestern transplants, brought the next pivot. Amidst apple orchards heavy with fruit, Alexander sprang it. What if we expand? Not blood, but family. Adoption talks. Foster to adopt. A teen maybe, bridging our worlds. Paperwork loomed, daunting, but the vision ignited. A home with laughter echoing ours, scars shared as strengths. Climax crested not in catastrophe, but quiet profundity. A November scan, clean bill, his doc beaming. You're thriving. We celebrated at our favorite speakeasy. Jazz humming low, his head on my shoulder. We beat the odds, he said, voice husky. Team effort. I kissed his temple, the bar's amber glow haloing us. Winter holidays layered joy. Clara's menorah, my sister's visit from Ohio Marais, softened by time and grandkids' photos, toasting us with wary warmth. You look happy, Mijo, she conceded, hugging Alexander like kin. New Year's Eve, Times Square madness televised as we hosted. Queer chosen family crammed in our loft, upgraded. Finally, countdown cheers drowning Auld Lang Syne. At midnight, confetti raining, he pulled me close. Here's to more summers. Infinite. Spring 2027 unfurled petals of possibility. Foster certification classes. A joint exhibit at the Whitney, Tides of Us, blending our mediums into narratives of endurance. Critics lauded the humanism. Reyes and Hale render love's labor not as triumph, but testament. 1 June dawn. As Luna chased fireflies in the yard, Alexander found me sketching on the stoop. "What's this one?" he asked, peering over. "Our next chapter. A boy. Tentative lines. With his eyes. My smile." He knelt, ring glinting. "Wait. No ring. Just hands. Clasped. Ready. Always." The story didn't end in tragedy or tidy bows. Life's too American for that. All grit and grace. Reinvention's endless road. We walked it together. Daniel and Alexander. Promises evolved. Not one last summer, but every season. Savored in the ache and the afterglow. Betrayal's echo faded to wisdom. Love, the ultimate humanism, proved not in perfection, but persistence. And in the quiet moments, waves crashing distant like applause, I'd whisper to the stars, "Thank you for the time." Every stolen second.